Hi, and welcome to this portion of the DVD, the How to Glitch tutorial. My name's Evan, and I made a lot of the work on this disc, and maybe you saw some of it, or maybe you saw some other glitch art, and now you're interested in creating a glitch, or what's sometimes called a data bend, of your very own. And I think that is a pretty noble goal. You're only going to need two things for this tutorial, the first of which is a hex editor, and we'll get to what that is in just a second. The second thing is a file that you want to work with to create your glitch. Now this can be anything. You can create glitches with text files or video or picture files or even sound files. And I'm not going to tell you what you can or should and shouldn't be glitching, but I'm going to give two pieces of advice for those among you who may be novice glitch artists. The first thing that I'll say is that you're going to want to go into your hard drive and find a file and make a copy of it. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone has to promote safe glitching, but when you make a copy and work with that copy, if the file gets pushed a little too far and the copy gets ruined or destroyed or unplayable, then you can just make another copy from the original. Now, if you're just working with your original straight up, well, that might prove some problems later because you could push the file too far, encode it, save it, and it doesn't work, and then you're out of that file forever. So a little bit of redundancy never hurt anyone. The second thing I'll say is I'm actually working with a picture file here. It's a JPEG. And there are lots of different files that you can encode, and I'm not going to say that you have to start with pictures, but I think pictures yield interesting results more readily than most other files, and I think that's because they have less code to them. Now, if you have a 100 gig video file, and I can only assume has trillions of lines of code, and you change one of those lines, well, you've made one change in a trillion. That's actually not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. If a picture has, let's say, 100 lines of code and you change one of them, well, then you've changed 1 in 100, which is 1%, which is a noticeable percent. So pictures work a little bit better in creating apparent glitches more easily. Now, the other thing pictures do is they come in lots of different file extensions and codecs, and those are interesting to explore, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But the more options you have in terms of what the file extension is, for example, JPEG or TIFF or PNG or a PDF or a Photoshop file, I mean, all of these will deconstruct a little bit differently. So pictures allow for you to create glitches in a lot of different flavors. And I think that's pretty useful for people who are just starting out in glitch art because it shows them the possibilities right up front. And who doesn't want to be shown things up front? Now, a hex editor is a tool which opens up any file into the code which creates that file. Now, I could tell you all about it, but I think the best way to do is just show it. So I'm going to take my picture and I'm going to open it up in my hex file. Hex editors are readily available. You can download them from a bunch of different places on the internet. You can just do a search and find any one that'll work for you. They should be free and they'll work across platforms, so you can find one for PC or Mac or Linux or whatever you happen to be using that day. They're also just really great tools to have on hand, so maybe when you download it, it won't take up much space. Just leave it on your hard drive. Okay, so we have our picture, which, if you've noticed, is a picture of a small child, and I'll open it up in a picture editor so you can see what it looks like as a picture. That's actually me as a young child. I thought it would be apt to glitch this piece of work because I no longer look like that, and I don't know, maybe the picture shouldn't look like that anymore either. But the picture also looks like this. This is the code of that picture. Kind of amazing, right? I mean, this is this. Interchangeable. It just matters who's interpreting the code. Here the code wants to be a picture, here the code wants to be text. Kind of amazing. For those of you who learn by analogy, and I'm one of those people, it's a good way to think about this is genetic code. I mean, I am a person and I'm walking around and I do things and I can make a sandwich, but underneath it is genetic code which props me up and gives me these abilities and they makes me human. So if I were to alter that genetic code, it would also alter what I look and probably act like, right? Think superheroes in this context. I mean, their genetic code gets altered and then all of a sudden they can fly and teleport and do all this amazing stuff. Okay. So now we're ready to perform our first data bend. We have our piece of media that we've loaded into our hex editor, and we are ready to make the first incision, as it were. Now, Before we can do that, I just want to point out one thing. This particular hex editor lets us look at two different types of code. Here in the blue, we have hex code, which uses characters A through F and 0 through 9. And on this side, we have ASCII, which is a different type of code. A good way to think about this is, let's say, a linguistic scale. On one side, you have binary, which is basically just zeros and ones. It's two characters. And on the other side, you have the written and spoken language that I'm communicating with you now. It has lots of letters, lots of inflections, lots of rules and syntax and complications and rules which contradict other rules. Now, it's really good at talking about particular things, but it's not very efficient. Binary is very efficient. And as we go from binary to the language which I speak to you now, there are lots of little stops along the way. For example, binary is 2 characters, hexadecimal code is 16. And then if you move to ASCII, that's every character on your keyboard. That's a lot of different characters. So you can think about it as a sliding scale of redundancy and clarity. Okay. So I'm going to be working with our hexadecimal code today, which is the code right here in the blue again. And there's lots of different ways to perform a data bend. I know a lot of people who do a find and replace, which is a completely legit way to do this. You can just open up through whatever your hotkeys are, a find and replace, and you can replace a character or 2 characters or 3 characters. There's a lot of different ways to do that. The way I actually started was just putting the initials of people I knew in here that used A through F. So, we can change this 4 to a 0. We can change that 0 to a B. We can put in some 7s, an 8, 9, 0. We can start putting in text, and now each of those is modifying the file as a whole. So I'm going to let you take a little time and go through and maybe make a few changes. You can make changes to the hex code, or if you have a file editor that lets you do ASCII, you could make changes to the ASCII. You want to make just a few changes at first, okay? So I'm going to let you do that right now. Okay, I've made a few changes to my code. I've rearranged a few things, and I am going to save my file. There we go. And open it up. And here we go. So you can see I have made some changes to the file. Now, color palette has changed, form has changed, and I'm allowed to look at this thing, which is now a ruined file. I mean, if you got this off of a camera, you would say, something went terribly wrong. And that would be a way to look at it. But another way to look at it would be saying, wow, I've created a whole new composition here, which is, a more compromised function of my interaction with the computer. Pretty interesting. And I would say, I wonder if I can push this a little bit further. So now I'm going to go into the code and change a few more things, and maybe, cut and paste a few things from and to. So I'm going to let you work a little bit more on your file now, and maybe you'll find something that you really like. All right, we're back. You've probably worked on your file a little bit now and noticed that you are pushing it pretty far. I'm going to open up mine now and show you. There we go. Look at that. You can't even see the baby anymore, really. I mean, I guess you can. He's right here, I suppose. But look at this new composition we have. We can see the original data is being eroded and recontextualized, and now we have a whole new composition, which is pretty interesting. And I think it actually could be pushed a little bit further. So let's do that now. Let's push these a little bit further. Let's push them as far as we think we can. Okay? I'll let you have a little time to do that. All right, we're back. Now I've pushed my file as far as I think we can push it. I've done a lot of cutting and pasting, and I've changed the code around, and I even did a find and replace, and I replaced 300 characters, which is a pretty significant dent in the file's architecture. So now we'll reopen it, and look, the baby is completely gone. It is thrown out with the glitch water, and we have this new composition of colors and forms and structures and bits just trying to make themselves known. Pretty excellent. So there you have it. I mean, that's how to create a basic glitch. Now, there's a good chance that some of you in this process pushed your files a little too far, and then they didn't open, or they would open up as a completely blank screen, and that's totally fine. That's why we make copies, which is why I stressed making copies a little bit earlier. Now, I should also mention that these viewable results, these will change based on how the file is encoded. So once you've made your glitch, I mean, here I did a JPEG glitch, and you're satisfied with these results, maybe it's time to find a TIFF or a PNG, or maybe it's time to not glitch a picture at all and find a WAV file or a .mov. There are lots of different extensions that you can explore with this, and each of them will produce new forms and new ways that they break down. The damage really does depend on the codec, and I think that's a beautiful thing to explore. And I really do hope you take the time to explore it. There's a wide world of glitching out there, and although small, very interested community in what you, new glitch artist, will make. So hack, bend, break, and I wish you luck. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me or to the community. And once again, thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope to see you out there.